Hello, hello, hello. CT here. Welcome to the Audio Lab. Throughout the month of July, I'm running a little experiment. I know so many of you love to listen to your books, and since I'm getting ready to eventually record and publish the official audiobook for Brown Beyond Borders, I wanted to practice out loud with you first. So every single day this month, I'm pulling up a chair, reading a few pages of my memoir right here, and if you're on the free list, these daily drops will stay open for just a few days before they head into the archives for my paid subscribers. So make sure you keep up. And if you ever miss a session or want to unlock the whole archive to listen at your own pace, you can upgrade to a paid subscription at any time. But today we're stepping into chapter 3, excuse me. And actually, we're continuing chapter 3. Unlike the humorous interpretation of this term by comedian Jim Gaffigan, a Caucasian American whose comedy sketches can be found on Netflix or YouTube, the expression beyond the pale dates back hundreds of years. Look in any dictionary and you'll see that the noun pale is defined as, quote, the limits within which one is privileged or protected. Back in the days of tribal cultures, perhaps as far back as our Neanderthal ancestors, the pale was not only a physical fence or boundary that enclosed the community, but it was also abstract. Strength in numbers is established when the collective develops a code by which all participating and compliant individuals can enjoy the protections of the community. If you stay within the pale, you are to behave in accordance with those codes to maintain your place. However, if you don't comply with the codes, don't adhere to the community's mores, you extend beyond your designated place within the community, you disrupt the structure and so called balance of that community. You act beyond the pale. In modern US culture, the likelihood of being physically banished from your neighborhood or community is relatively low. But there is an underlying knowing in many individuals, especially minorities, that there are clear codes of conduct to know their place within their tribes. In his book, The Mind Body Code How to Change the Beliefs That Limit Your Health, Longevity, and Success, Dr. Mario Martinez explores the deep rooted nature of these codes, how they manifest in our modern cultures, and how to excel beyond the pale without having to pay the tribal price. So, what is the tribal price? In his book, Dr. Martinez shares the experience of one of his patients. A young man from a low income family decided to leave his small town in Mississippi to pursue his country music aspirations in Nashville, Tennessee. In little time, he became a country music star. Initially, when he returned to his hometown, his friends and family celebrated his successes. He was a hero for making a name for himself, becoming a star. But as his music career climbed to new heights, the further he moved away from the tribe's collective identity, his visits back home became increasingly complex. His friends and family were no longer celebrating his success. They resented him. In their minds, he became too good for his own good. With privilege comes responsibility. The advantage of the tribal collective is sustaining life. So I'm not advocating we all reach for our pitchforks and destroy the system, but it takes a healthy dose of awareness about the tribal collective and its significance to take stock of one's own situation. There are numerous boundaries in our modern world. US educated brown women of immigrant families dance across so many boundaries, it can be hard to keep track of which tribe we're conforming to, acting within, or even belong to. Thinking of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the tribal collective leverages the aspirational goal of providing its people with a sense of belonging by giving the promise of safety in numbers. Once an individual has had her physiological needs for food, shelter, and clothing met, as well as her safety needs, such as employment, health, and a stable abode, she seeks to meet her love and belonging needs. These needs have the individual looking outside of herself to family, friends, job colleagues, authority figures, clients, children, other parents, and more to build a tribe. You can see evidence of this in all manner of groups, including corporate jobs, small businesses, cottage industries, homeowners associations, and schools. Even artists create a sense of tribal belonging. Most of us don't belong to one tribe only. We belong to lots of different tribes that make us feel like we have a place in society. The thing about this landscape of tribes for US educated brown immigrant women is this: the diversity of all the tribes in which she moves is so varied that it can create a sense of fragmentation, a sense of never quite measuring up to any one tribe's set of belonging parameters. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. This ability to adapt to different tribal contexts creates extremely flexible and open minded individuals. Women who grow up moving across various tribal boundaries demonstrate an ability to put themselves in other people's shoes and see things from their perspectives. They bring a richness of experience and perspective that individuals who move around in more homogenous environments haven't yet had the opportunity to practice. Sometimes I wondered where I fit into the whole white privilege equation. I was most certainly not white, and knew I didn't have the pigmentation, the background, the family connections to enjoy the privileges that white people of a certain socioeconomic status can claim. However, I was acutely aware that I had benefited from a strong academic background, a solid knowledge of European history, and a proficient ability to speak three European languages with relative ease. I was a code switching master, and so was my brother. With a highly educated father and a European mother who spoke several languages, I recognized that my background had some unique factors, factors that I equated with privilege. Sometimes those privileges helped me gain access to a white world. You can imagine that if white people felt guilt for their white privilege, a brown person can experience shame as they walk past a line of black brothers and sisters to the front of the line. This was not made easier by the fact that mere years before I graduated from high school, Spike Lee, the famous American movie director and producer born in Atlanta, released his movie Jungle Fever. If you have never seen the movie before, it's about biracial relationships. I found the content difficult to handle because it shone a light on the overt and subtle aggressions women and men face when they are in a mixed relationship. It challenged the world I was born into, and I was not interested in messing up the worldview I had grown into with thoughts of deep, dark racial tensions which flowed furiously beneath the thin, white veneer of American culture. Jungle fever? Was this a thing that was looked down upon by Black people as well as by whites? This brown teenager did the math pretty quickly. Virtually any relationship for me would result in a jungle mix, a biracial coupling likely to end in discord or worse, disaster. From a young age, I became acutely aware of the subtle ways in which racism and discrimination could permeate everyday life, whether it was the curious stares from strangers, the offhand comments about my appearance, or the microaggressions that chipped away at my sense of self. I learned to navigate a world that wasn't always welcoming. Yet, I also discovered the strength that came from embracing my biracial identity and refusing to be defined by others' expectations. One of the most formative experiences of my adolescence was my encounter with Mr. Connolly, my high school math teacher. In his classroom, I faced the harsh realities of racism and prejudice head on, forcing me to confront my own identity and find my voice in the face of adversity. As a teenager, I felt like I was living a double life, navigating the complexities of being a biracial child of immigrant in the United States. Every environment only gets to see a particular aspect of me. At home, I was seen for my potential. I imagine this was the case for all my classmates. All of us attended that school to continue in the pioneering footsteps of our parents, regardless of the conditions they left back home. At school, I was just another international student, living in the US temporarily. Like my classmates, I spoke at least two languages at home. We watched broadcast TV shows such as Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place. We were part of an international program that had a European designed curriculum taught by teachers from diverse nationalities, with a majority being from Europe. In my sophomore year, Mr. Connolly was my math teacher. I think he was Irish American. I don't know much about his background, but his name and general demeanor gave up some clues. He was also the head basketball coach for our school's high school team. He sauntered around the school grounds like a jock, and he walked into every classroom like he was God's befreckled gift to humanity. I performed quite well in his class. He had ginger hair, chalky fingers, and he always seemed a little bit surprised when I aced another one of his math tests. Geometry, trigonometry, and algebra made sense to me, but I loathed every minute of his classes. I thought he was a bully. He cracked dumb jokes in class. The students he favored were Caucasian mostly, with a few exceptions being the African and African American stars on his basketball team. They knew they were favored. You could tell. Enduring one of his lessons meant laughing when the in- Enduring one of his lessons meant laughing when the inaudible drum kit would sound at one of his cheesy jokes. But sing! The class jocks would laugh while some girls would gush. I think he's really cool. I love Mr. Connolly's class. His fans didn't only operate within the pale, they defined it. If you were brown and you were caught yawning in his class, beware. He would pelt a piece of chalk your way, aiming directly for the basket created by your gaping mouth. It happened once to an Indian classmate who was a strong math student. Just tired, I suppose. Bless her heart, Mom believed me when I explained some of the wild antics Mr. Connolly used to get our attention in his class. Still, she was a product of the culture in which she grew up. She encouraged me to keep my head down, do my best, endure it, and hope for the best. And while she wasn't going to complain to the school about Mr. Connolly, she finally raised the issue with my dad. As I closed out the sophomore year of high school, I learned that if I were to continue my intermediate level of math study, I would have to close out my junior and senior years under Mr. Connolly's tutelage. Oh, hell no. I did what any desperate teenage girl who feels like she can't control a situation would do. I brought it up over dinner. My father and I discussed the option of my joining the advanced math class. We decided that I would challenge myself for the final 2 years. The school pushed back. Perhaps my father sensed that avoiding Mr. Connolly's classroom, rather than a desire to succeed in mathematics, was the catalyst for my extremely ambitious request. Thankfully, because of my father's commitment to all things academic, he believed I could step up to the challenge of Math Higher, as it was called, and he dug his heels in with the school administration. My father probably thought, no harm ever came from a woman pushing herself academically, and for that, I'm thankful to him for his support and his sponsorship. For weeks, my father became my advocate, speaking up for me to have the opportunity to move into the advanced math class. We must have both reasoned, at best, I would emerge from Math Higher as a math genius and pursue astrophysics, and at worst, I would end up a writer with a knack for numbers. Guess which one happened? Okay, sorry, I'll continue reading. What I know today is that he knew his academic success afforded him his ticket away from the Caribbean island where he grew up and eventually into the heart of Washington, D.C., beyond the pale. He wanted to aid me in my need to free myself from Mr. Connolly's fiefdom. Eventually, the school administration relented and reallocated me to Math Higher. After all, I had performed exceptionally well in Mr. Connolly's classes for the previous 2 years, and there's no winning when my father digs his heels in. Interestingly, after one of my classmates learned that I had been admitted to Math Higher, he went to his parents and asked if he could join Math Higher as well. Tong Di, a Thai classmate from whom I later learned was not fond of Mr. Connolly's form of swagger, was transferred rather quickly. Eventually, we shared the cost of a private math tutor to help keep us afloat with the advanced content of our instruction. The challenge was worth it to avoid the mental stress of being picked on by Mr. Connolly. Looking back, Tong Di, other Brown classmates, and I were not overly concerned with the world's prejudices. We didn't reflect on the hardships we faced or had survived. We were not overly worried about fixing the way things were. For the most part, we appreciated that we had it good, that there were enough of us brown folk, whether from Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, or South America, to know that we were not alone. And when we were together, we could laugh together and lessen the blow of another's ignorant behavior. And that is where we're stopping for today. If you have a question about the book, the writing process, or anything we covered in today's segment, drop it in the comments of this post, and I might just answer yours on a future episode. I'm really glad I get to share this unedited process with you. Look out for the next pages in your inbox tomorrow morning. And if you know someone who would connect with this part of the journey, please share this post with them while it's open to the public. And if you want to support this audio experiment and my writing as I start drafting book 2, consider becoming a paid subscriber to unlock everything. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.